Eoghan Corry is a travel writer. Hiya, Eoghan. Thanks so much for joining us on the programme this morning. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure.
Now, Eoghan, there seems to be two things that are going on here. Firstly, people have booked under one set of terms and conditions, and then terms and conditions are changed, and maybe they think that the new terms and conditions apply to them when they don't. But also, I think some airlines are I wouldn't say chancing their arms, they're playing a bit of economical gymnastics here in offering vouchers, even though people are entitled to a cash refund, but not saying so, and then making it quite difficult to track down that cash refund, if that makes sense.
All makes sense. The legislation is clear, is still in place. This is really important. EU 261 applies. You're entitled to a cash refund. There's a time limit on it. The Package Holiday Directive still applies. You're entitled to a refund. What has happened is that the legislation has been overtaken by events, and that's an understatement. The airlines across Europe are, as one, saying as Lufthansa articulated it, we're not against the principle of refunds, but people are going to have to wait. The reason is that if everybody arrives with their refund demand, the entire aviation industry and the entire tour operator and the tour travel agent industry will all come to a complete halt. They have gone to Brussels with that case. They got 2 of 3 of their demands, and then they didn't get the important one on that refund, Cash 261. But what's interesting is what's happened since then. 7 of the governments of Europe have said, because of the strange circumstances we're in, vouchers will count instead of a cash refund. Some of them have put time limits on it. 12 months is sort of the one that's probably kicked around most. They include some of the biggies like Germany, France and Italy, Netherlands, but they don't as yet include Ireland. A draft wording has been floating around since the Thursday before Easter in the Department of Transport, probably tied up with legals because there's a Department of Business input, there's a European dimension, so a lot of discussion going on around that. But it does look like legislation is still in place, cash refund, but it does look like that the voice that the entire infrastructure of travel will be brought down by this is being listened to at national government level and probably eventually at European level.
Will
take a while to sort out. Yeah,
as it relates to ourselves, Eoghan, say you don't actually need the money. Say you booked a couple of flights for 80 quid or whatever, and that 80 quid doesn't put you up or down, and you don't want to go through all the hoops to get that money back. And you like competition in the skies, you know, you like the fact that maybe Ryanair's buying up all this or is being paid to take this oil off people's hands, who's to say. But whatever state, that, you know, maybe the best chance you can have to have that competition and cheaper flights going forward is to take the voucher, you know, if you don't need the money.
No doubt about that. It's interesting Ryanair have been mentioned so much because they changed their policy on Monday. Until Monday, Ryanair were the only airline offering refunds. Aer Lingus initially said we'll give you 110% of your fare value in a voucher, and they then succumbed and said, OK, we will do refunds. It's a jigsaw puzzle to find the link on the site. I'm sure loads of your listeners are familiar with what Ryanair did on Monday. They emailed people saying there was a lovely form on their site that people could fill in, and they said, well, we'll get you a refund as quickly as we can. But then they emailed and said, we will do refunds, but you're going to have to go to the back of the queue until this is all over. In the meantime, this is your way of getting a voucher. When people contacted them to say, I want a refund, I want my cash, household circumstances have changed for lots of people, I want my cash now, you got a nice reply saying there are 4 ways you can redeem your voucher. They've made it so difficult to even mention the word refund that everything has changed. From being best in class, they've been the worst in class. The American airlines who were the first to come up with a voucher, 12 months, if it's not used up by then you get your cash. They went to Donald Trump looking for money, and one of the conditions that was put on it was that they refund people. They got a tranche load of money, $25 billion. They've gone from being worst in class to being best in class. The whole scenario between refunds versus vouchers is wrecking people's heads, and it's so time-consuming.
Yeah,
people are waiting 2 hours for customer care.
Yeah.
I went on to Ryanair for the the chat. Obviously, you can do other things with the chat. I put my query in, and 6 hours later, they hadn't come back.
I mean, there is always the option for chargebacks, particularly with credit cards and certainly with some debit cards. I mean, it might be an easier route for people to go down to. I don't know if you've ever employed it, but you have that protection. If you buy a service and you're not getting that service, I mean, you can put in a chargeback with your credit card for whatever amount it might be if it was booked on it, and maybe that's one way to resolve the situation if the travel agents or the airlines aren't playing ball.
Yeah, should be your first stop. PayPal, the credit cards, as you say, some debit cards do it, different conditions with different payments. That means that the credit card sometimes goes back to the business or puts a hold on the business account. They've got a lot more power in getting that. It solves the problem of getting the money out. It actually creates further problems down the line for keeping businesses open that we need to keep open for competition. But that should be your first call. There are other options. Your travel insurance, your disruption insurance, new policies have a specific clause saying COVID-19 does not apply for your disruption cover. But the older policies, disruption applied. Yeah. This is really important.
We all have a part.
Extreme injustices that came out in the earlier weeks of the crisis when Donald Trump banned people entering from Ireland, and the flight still continued because there were people being repatriated in both directions. The airlines, mainly Aer Lingus and the American carriers, said the flight's still going ahead, not our problem, you're a no-show. If the customer said, I'm not even allowed in, I won't be let past immigration, they say, well, that's not our problem. You pay for the flight, we're not going to give you your money back. Go to your insurer. The insurer said, it's not our problem, go back to the airline. They're the sort of major injustices that people have been hit, and some people are being hit for thousands of euro on this. I do expect that consumer rights will prevail, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take court battles to do it. And I would seriously say to people that are chasing, for instance, your local travel agent down. Travel agents work on a really small margin. The money's gone out of their account. It's gone to the airline. It's gone to the hotel. It's gone to the cruise line. They don't actually have it to return. And people that are demanding money back should bear in mind that every single business that is inbound and outbound that's affected with travel is really, really bleeding at the moment. They're facing an existential crisis. In the case of the agents, no new bookings coming in, and they're dealing with their existing customers, trying to sort them out, doing a pretty good job on it. Inbound tourism, every hotel that has taken bookings for the summer is now facing screaming customers looking for their money back. They're doing the same thing, trying to say, we'll do everything we can to get you to change your date or facilitate a change of date, but we cannot be in a position where we're not getting any business and we're paying out.
Yeah, okay, I get you. I paid €4,000 for a holiday, and Jet2 was telling us we get a full refund, €4,000 for a holiday. Jet2 was telling us we get a refund. Now they're saying we're only getting a voucher. Now, again, be it through a chargeback mechanism or enforcing the terms and conditions as to when that holidays was booked, Jet2 can't move the goalpost like that. They can make it incredibly difficult to try and get that cash refund, but they can't move the goalpost like that, can they?
It's funny you should say that. Jet2 are one of the more vulnerable of the airlines. They've proposed to the British government a 2-year that you put vouchers in place, and at the end of 2 years you can get your money back if you haven't used them. Most airlines are operating on 1 year. They cannot, under legislation, under the existing consumer legislation, move the goalposts, as you put it. The problem is the entire playing field being moved?
Yeah.
And that's where we will end up in court cases in Brussels. We will end up with the British government probably giving bailouts to their airlines. Richard Branson is in there knocking on the door. Jet2 is knocking on the door. Stobart and their parent in administration, Loganair, who fly to Derry, all knocking at the door. And there may be a condition on that refunds are central to any bailout package. If you're to sum up in 2 words what everybody is doing that's involved in the travel business, it's buying time. Nobody that I'm looking at is trying to wriggle out of their consumer obligation to refund the customer, but they all know that we cannot refund every single flight across the world in March that's been paid for, and possibly April, May, and then we're into the big, heavy booking seasons of July, August.
Yeah. I booked a holiday for the end of June. I got insurance at the time. Can I get a refund? It was booked in a travel agent's.
Yeah, you should. Travel agent bookings are still the safest. They're covered. They're bonded. Again, the same thing will happen. There will be options put in front of you for vouchers for changes of date. The refund is still in play, and it's just a question of maybe having to wait for it.
Yeah. Okay. And again, if you like the travel industry and you want it to return to some normality, if you can absorb that money until such time as you can take that holiday, you will be helping to protect these companies, protect these jobs, and protect the travel agents too.
That's central to it. I mean, the travel agents are probably the way down the food chain. There's 3,500 jobs, but they offer a really, really important service. And I can tell you, they're the ones who are fighting for the consumer. Whatever about sitting up in an office in Dublin and an airline saying, "Oh well, we'll offer them 110 voucher and no refund." A travel agent meets their customers in the street. There's no travel agent I know that isn't in there fighting for the consumer. This actually will serve the consumers as well. If you've got issues, as lots of people have, with getting the money back from hotels, getting the money back from airlines, the travel agents are part of a lobbying body which will move on behalf of all their customers. So that lobbying is going on, and the bonding system is still in place. Your money is safest with a travel agent.
This is a big one, you know. I don't know if you've heard much about this, but I've been contacted by lots and lots of people on this. It's people who've booked school trips through schools. Now, this one is a school trip in Italy. It's paid for in full on Friday. What will happen to us? We've had no communication from the schools. And in other contacts I've had with these people in this situation, Owen, I think the schools are somewhat hamstrung because they've booked accommodation on one hand, they've booked flights on another, and they've booked activities on another. It's all scattergunned, if you know what I mean. And in any normal circumstances, that's the way to do it. But I wonder what kind of problems that's now presenting for schools who perhaps could never have envisaged that would end up with this cluster, you know what. So do you know much about this and what is generally happening?
What will generally happen is new dates will be put in place. There are, as you say, scattergunned. It's actually illegal for a school to put together their own package with hotels and transfers and flights and everything like that. They generally work through one of the big tour operators. Top Flight are the major operator dealing with school trips to Italy. Obviously, a crisis for them. They have an entire school programme cancelled, but they're a reputable organisation who's been through quite a few difficulties in the past themselves, through the global financial crisis and 9/11 and all of that. They've been around for that. So what they will be doing behind the scenes is negotiating refunds and negotiating date changes and negotiating separately with the airline, the transfer company, the hotels, the activities, the ski activities, all of those. The joy of having somebody having that central point is that it is a problem. It's going to be a problem unravelling all of this, but it's actually their problem, not the school's problem. A lot of school trips, the entire school programme, there was more than nearly 30 trips lost from the outbreak of coronavirus in Italy to the end of the season, and there are school trips in other directions. The reality is that if a school has done the phrase you used, the scattergun approach, and put it together themselves, they're outside the law because it's illegal under the Package Holiday Directive, and that, I doubt, is the case with many schools, if any.
Now, if you take a voucher, a 12-month voucher, and between the jigs and the reels, it could be illness or dates clashing or whatever, that you can't use that voucher. By accepting that voucher, are you relinquishing your entitlement to a cash refund? So you know what I'm on about. There is some gamble there. So by accepting a voucher, does that then mean that your entitlement to a cash refund is superseded?
That's where we need the Department of Transport to take those documents that are sitting in an office somewhere in Dublin and sort it out. The voucher scheme is not legislated for under Package Holiday Directive or EU 261. The governments that have moved in and said, OK, we'll save the airlines and the tour companies with vouchers, they've come in with the terms and conditions. The terms and conditions that are going to apply in Ireland will include a definite period under which it can have to be redeemed, option for a cash refund. I'm not absolutely certain the details here because they may be negotiated. Option for a cash refund, full cash refund at the end of that period. And also the really important thing, transferability. People who have nieces, nephews who have booked for a wedding and there's somebody else, some other person going on holiday later in the year, they want to be able to transfer vouchers. It doesn't land in one name. It can be transferred within a family. The way it's set up at the moment, the airlines and the tour companies are all making up their own terms and conditions for the voucher. Some are very liberal. In fact, Ryanair is one of the more liberal. Some of them are offering 110%, like Aer Lingus are doing. Some are offering 120%. But they are all different terms and conditions.
And those flights we booked in very different environments, and I wonder how much of that 10% of value you'll get.
The Department of Transport has to, and the Commission of Aviation Regulation, they're in consultation on this. If they accept that vouchers are a short-term solution to the cash flow problem that is facing the entire travel industry, they have to grow up a consumer-friendly series of terms and conditions. They haven't done so as yet. Right,
last one, and this is a kind of an interesting one. Because this all kicked in and other things were taking precedent, you had a flight like this caller, they were over 70, they were due to go to Manchester, right? But then they were told to cocoon. They missed the flight to Manchester. It did take off and land, okay? But they weren't on it. That, to borrow another travel analogy, that ship has sailed, surely, hasn't it?
And insurance is your place to go.
Even if the flight has gone and come, even if you missed the flight?
If you show up in the airline as a no-show, you've missed the flight. Your money's gone.
Yeah, I think so.
But what you do afterwards is that you chase this down and say, well, it was impossible for me to travel, and that's one to go after the insurance, particularly if you have disruption cover. Your ordinary €99 a year travel insurance policy doesn't cover flight disruption. It costs about an extra 15 or so. It used to anyway. Before this probably cost more, and 9 for an individual. But if you have flight disruption, you do have a few more options. It is a battle that has to be fought and won, and I can tell you now the insurance companies are looking for every get-out clause they can to avoid paying because they're facing a crisis of their own.
All right, listen, thank you so much of your time, Owen. I appreciate that. Great stuff.
More helpful for some of those people.
Okay, it was very good, Owen. It was very good. Owen Corry there, travel writer. Someone was asking about...